going to do it. I am going to do it. I am going to be talking live about prices in the voiceover industry. And and I have pulled up the GVAA rate guide so that we can use the rate guide as well as a resource in this discussion. But you might be thinking, Anthony, what in the world? You're just crazy to be talking about prices in the voiceover industry on a live YouTube channel. And yes, I am crazy. That is I. But I figured, you know what? We might as well dive into it because I do know that so many people still, whether you are in the voiceover industry, you have been for a long time, or whether you're just starting out, pricing is a tough topic to talk about. And it's really tough as a performer, as a business. I mean, just as a business owner, it's tough in general. But in the voiceover industry, so many things are happening that it's super tough. So I thought that we could dive into this a little bit today, and I could give you some of my thoughts and some of the things that I see, just in my humble opinion. But I do want to point out that all of these things that, like I'll talk about today, I mean, these just come from my own experiences. And as I grow as a voiceover artist and build my business, you know what I mean? All of those experiences, they change. And with you, and my opinions and my ideas, they grow. You should be the same way. And I think for starting out the context of this discussion, that's kind of like where I would like to start, is at the beginning of when you just start out on your journey in voiceover, right? To begin somewhere, you have to, you have to get in where you are. Whether you start like I did with a $40 microphone, and you started with your hobo fort with packing blankets and a PVC pipe, and you've got a USB mic, and you really don't know what you're doing. You have to start somewhere. You know what I mean? You can't just start at the top of the rung. So I think that being the context of us beginning the conversation on pricing, if you look, in my humble opinion, if we look at pricing as, I think I like to look at it as like a hill, right? Or like a mountain. You know what I mean? As you're first starting out, you start at the bottom. Nobody starts out at the top of the mountain. You don't jump to the top. Okay. You have to start at the bottom. And I think I don't want anyone to feel as if, when you start at the bottom, that you are going to devalue what we do. Because I think there are ways that you can charge appropriately for your level that you're at, to not devalue the industry, but at the same time, give you an opportunity to learn. Because the reality is that, when you're starting out, the likelihood that you're going to be hired for, an ad on Coke, or Pepsi or Ford is very slim, right? But you might be able to get work from another entrepreneur who maybe is, a solopreneur like us, and they want to, run a small little marketing campaign for their, financial services business, and they'd like to hire a voiceover artist. They might, right, like, and they work down the road from you at their little business. I mean, they might want to hire you, and your prices and their prices go together, I mean, thank you about talking about Fiverr or just even $5, even if it's on Fiverr or not, and $5 jobs. I think that, when we boil it down to just starting out and working with people, you start where you start, but the goal should never be to stay there. The goal should be to raise your prices as you get better. So, perfect example, I like to think of it, and I know other people might agree or might disagree, but when I was first starting out and I had no idea about pricing, I didn't know who to talk to. I didn't know anybody in the industry. And, I didn't know about the GVAA rate guide. I didn't know any of that stuff. I looked at it as if I was an employee, right? And I looked at it as, well, how do generally everybody else measure being paid, right? Well, they measure like, you're paid a certain amount of money per hour. Okay. So what I did was, at the time, I didn't know any better. Okay. So remember, when you're first starting, you don't know any better. So give yourself a break. Okay. But what I did was, is I looked at how much I made currently. I was teaching then. And, trying to remember what I made an hour. I can't remember whether it was, 30 bucks, 40 bucks, or whatever it was, an hour rate I was making after everything was said and done. I took that, said, okay, well, if I make, well, let's just say, for example, let's say you make $30, an hour. Okay. Or another, let's say you work a job where you make $15 an hour. Okay. And then you come in to do voiceover and you try to price yourself. You're like, okay, well, if I charge $15 an hour, what do I charge someone who wants to, just needs me for 30 seconds? So then, of course, the natural progression is you start looking around. What are other people charging? But see, at the time, I didn't know any of that. So, of course, I go and I start looking at places to find business. Like I got on ACX. And then I learned there's a whole nother way of pricing things on ACX or audiobooks, because a finished hour, or, for example, a finished minute in e-learning, or, a 90-second explainer video spot, these are all finished products, but the work that goes behind that is a lot more than just the amount of time is shown on the finished product. So because of that, I had to take that in consideration as I'm pricing my job. So if I start on the context of me saying that for an hour's work of me going out and getting a job, someone pays me $30. So then I would go and say, okay, so if that's true, I'll charge $30 for an hour. Well, and now that's ludicrous to me to think about that, because I know what work goes into it. So I want you guys to think about too, the importance of understanding how much work you put into all of this and what that means, and how much actual time you put in, that it goes well beyond 30 seconds or a minute as well. A fully minute produced spot, that encompasses a lot more time. You know what I mean? To really do it right. At the same time, if you are working from home, like most of us are now, we don't pay studio fees. We don't pay director fees. We don't pay all of those fees. And a lot of that is included in the rate guide, for example, from like the GVAA and things, which the GVAA clearly says that's included in there. There's a lot of things that you have to look in between the lines. One thing I love about the rate guide on the GVA, which I love the site and I love what they're doing, but the very top of their guide, they say the GVA rate guide, and I'm reading this right from there, is intended solely as an informational and educational resource for the voiceover community, talent, and producers to consider when they're determining their own rates. So, I mean, right there, like right from the top, the people who are so stringent about how that works, the site specifically says it is for educational purposes and just to help you get an idea of an average that you go above and below. And as you look at all of that, you have to consider the fact that, again, if I'm going to be charging top rate, I better be able to do a top rate voiceover. I better be able to produce a top rate, top quality product, or how am I going to justify charging that? Okay. So I want to kind of go further in. That was kind of like my overall spiel. Let's talk about maybe, my thoughts about what you can do starting out to price your stuff. Okay. First off, this is just from my general experience, because it's coming back to bite me in the backside. Be consistent. Whatever you decide to charge that across the board. It doesn't matter what website you're on. Doesn't matter whether you're on Voices or voices.com or Fiverr or Voquent or wherever, or Upwork, any of these sites, Freelancer, charge what you charge and be consistent, because there will people are savvy. They will go around and search for you. This has happened to me. I've had people find me on websites, find my address, then email me, ask me to work with me, then I tell them what my price is. And then they would say to me, well, that's not what you charge over here on this website. And then needless to say, they don't talk to me anymore. So, it's important for you to stay consistent with what you charge. Okay. I do like the GVAA rate guide. If you don't know what that is, that's the Global Vocal Academy.com. And you go, if you pop right on that website, and up in the right-hand corner, there's a resources tab, and there's a guide there. It says the GVAA rate guide. And you go through here, and it goes through all sorts of things, everything that we kind of do in our industry, from TV broadcast to e-learning to animation to audiobooks to promo imaging, cinema, different types of fees. All right. And it goes through a general idea of what would be like an average price, with all things considered, from the very top to the very bottom, of what generally would be considered charged in a professional atmosphere. Okay. So you could go down here, and this is a great way to look at pricing yourself. However, I do want to point out to you now that, as you have already probably realized, when you go to a website, they don't give you they're not set up like that, right? They're not set up like you on your website, where you control exactly how everything looks and feels. Okay. You go on Fiverr, and Fiverr has a whole bunch of different things for you to consider when you're putting prices in, not just your general price per minute, but also all of the extras. And what people don't, I think, get upset with about Fiverr is, and honestly, is because Fiverr leaves it completely in your hands. So if you look about it on Fiverr, you can also add your own extras. So, for example, if you wanted to benefit from the crazy traffic machine Fiverr is, and I don't care what anybody says, they are. Fiverr is an insane traffic machine, and they are just growing. No one can deny that. No one can deny how much growth and power Fiverr is gaining. They are becoming the Amazon of the service industry. Amazon is the Amazon of products. Fiverr is becoming the Amazon of the service industry. Okay. And I mean, Fiverr's, I just said that. So the point I'm trying to make here is that you could literally go on to the GVAA rate guide, and you could say, okay, well, I'm going to look at how I'm going to price my stuff. So on Fiverr, it tells you, you know what, we're going to start off. What do you want to say for your general, your first, per minute? But here's the problem with that, right? The problem with that is that if you go to the rate guide here on the GVAA, they've got different rates for broadcast. They've got different rates for radio. They've got different rates for, non-broadcast. They've got different rates for animation and e-learning and video games. All right. But what does Fiverr do? Fiverr allows you to set up multiple gigs. Now, whether Fiverr did it on purpose, it makes sense to me. Like, someone came here or someone looked and said, how can we allow voiceover artists or other people to charge the different rates that mean something? Well, you could literally come on here as a level 0 or just starting out. There is 4, 8, 12. So there's 12 different on this one. There's like 12, but it's really like probably, let's just say for the sake of an even number, 10. And say that, you have 10 different gigs. Let's say you're level 1, but if you're level 0, you have 5. So we'll just start with 5. So let's say you do 5, and you do a radio, you do an e-learning, you do an audiobooks, you do a TV spot, and then maybe you do a video game. All right. Characters gig, and you have those 5 gigs up on Fiverr. So then let's say you're trying to figure out how to price them. Well, let's say then you come to the GVA rate guide, and you click on video games. Okay. And it talks to you about all of these things, but you need to read between the lines, because, like, for example, video games, it says, right, it says $200 to $300 per hour. Okay. So, and then it claims that it needs to be 2 or 4 hour minimum. All right. Now you got to take this in consideration. And this is the challenge, I think, that people are having. And we all, and we all just need to give each other a break. The challenge is that these websites are driving an insane amount of traffic. They are where we have to go right now. Yes, we can work on our own, but it is what it is. There's business there. And because they are the gate holders, the key holders, it doesn't matter whether it's Fiverr, Voices, or whatever, right? They can determine how it best fits the client, not us, how to divide everything up. So if I'm looking at this and I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to charge on video games, and I'm like, okay, it says $200. I'm just beginning, so I'll start at the lowest part, $200 per hour, but this says a minimum of 2 to 4 hours. So in reality, right? So that's like at least claiming that it's got to be 2 hours, but the likelihood that someone is going to charge you a 2-hour rate, all right, on a video game spot where they want a couple of voices, like 50 words, you're not going to get that starting out on the gate. And it says over here on the notes, full buyout rate. All right. Vocally stressful sessions should be limited to 2-hour sessions. Common per session rate is $500 for an hour max session on the vocally stressful ones. But then they go and they talk all about SAG-AFTRA and all of these things. And what I'm trying to say is that this is challenging, and so many people are angry with each other or angry at other voiceover artists for trying to figure out what to charge. When the reality is that this whole thing is set up in a way that does make it difficult to navigate on some of these websites. So if I was looking at this and I was doing the video game thing, right, it says on Fiverr, they allow you to do per minute, which means if you break that down, right, if it's $200 an hour and you break that down per minute, what is that? That's like, what is it? So if it's 60 times 60 minutes times 2 is 120, right? So the way 60 minutes times 3 is 180. So if we do like what, we'll say $3 per minute, right? And then if you multiply that out, and let's say you do $100, okay, well that's, yeah, so then that would be 100 words, right? So if you have 100 words, okay, if you think about it, 100, so usually a minute, bear with me, minute's like 150 words, right? That's like a minute. So if you do like a minute, $3, 150 words, that doesn't seem right, right? But they're saying a minimum of 2 to 4 hours, because if you broke it down like that, and what's really interesting, you guys, is if you go through this, there's nothing wrong with this, but that's what I'm saying. You have to take the context. If you go through this guide and you try it, like for example, e-learning specifically says, and the way they structure it on here, that, it's going to cost about $25 per minute, which is 150 words, which is like what I exactly charge on Fiverr. That's what it says on the GVA rate guide. Do you understand what I'm saying? And then all the extra fees and the buyouts and everything that goes into it, they go below on the extras. So what I'm getting at, you guys, is people are so angry at Fiverr and these other places. But as you look at this stuff, it's actually not that far apart. It's not that different. People just see a $5 price tag and they think it's the end of the world. But if you dove into all of it, you would see it's a lot different. Now, of course, someone would say, all right, look, I'm on the non-broadcast part where it says corporate and industrial VO, and it says 1 to 2 minutes, all right, for finished is $350 to $450. This is for a single video usage only, including editing and file naming splits, does not include TV broadcast, all that stuff. All right, so that clearly 350 to 450, 1 to 2 minutes on a finished scale. All right, that's a lot higher than $25 per finished minute on the e-learning. But why is that? Well, that's because on e-learning, you're going to typically be doing hours of work, right? Whereas for this, you probably would only do 1 to 2 minutes. So that has to justify the bulk of what you're charging, because you might only do a couple of those jobs a week. So you see what I mean? So the pricing has to be different in order to even out the playing field. But again, if you start to look at it from a standpoint of, if you don't divide up your stuff and then make it, people understand what it is, right? And the differences between finished and unfinished and everything, brand new people coming into the industry, not voiceover artists, but clients, they're not going to know any of this stuff. They're not going to understand it. And it's not that they're not going to have they probably don't have a budget for it. And on top of that, they don't understand why it has to be that way, when everything to them is the same, because it's all by word count, not by what goes beyond the words, but in the sense of us being an industry and a job and what happens on averages. All right. So I really think that so many people are angry and having a hard time because they can't figure out why people are charging smaller rates or people are charging larger rates. But it is difficult to navigate all of this because it is so different from each section, from e-learning to broadcast and on to TV to radio to commercial to broadcast. All of this stuff is challenging to learn. And then when you go on a website, they can set it up the way they want. So then you're kind of, stuck against the wall. All right, so I definitely went off on some things here, and I hope at least what I've laid out here is that we are actually on one side, we are not that far away from what the rate guide says, and the industry is not as far apart as they think they are, I believe. There are some places where they're very far apart, some places where we're not very far apart at all. People would be surprised. And there's also places where everything is all encompassing. And there's places like Fiverr where Fiverr breaks down everything so that you see one little price tag, but in the essence, on the back end of Fiverr, you have 10 different extras. So when somebody orders mine, right, where I say I have like a $20 price tag, my averages are like over $70 per order. But yet when you first see it, it's 20. And that's because of maybe somebody wants me to proofread their script, somebody has revisions, et cetera, et cetera. Like all this stuff is breakdown. When you look at the GVA rate guide, it's all included in the price. Now there's some usage and some fees and stuff, which is different. Absolutely. And Fiverr, and I'm just using Fiverr as an example, is it gives you the opportunity to add those extras down there. You can do that. Now, you have to be aware, and I think this is where the hiccup comes, that so many people think that they can go on to these sites and put those things on there and get business. And then they're mad and they're angry at the sites when they don't get business. But here's the thing. It's not voiceover artist's fault. It's not the website's fault. It is a free market. So no matter what, you're going to have someone who contacts you and they're going to say, I got $50. I see it costs, $300 to work with you. Do you want the $50? Right? You just say, absolutely not. No way, no way, no way. However, then your kids are looking at you thinking, I need to have some food. Okay, well, then you decide, okay, well, then you know what? I can take that $50. No one's going to know. And you do the work. You get the money. You're able to I'm using a really crude example here, but hopefully you understand what I'm saying about how this happens. Okay. We don't intend to create things the way they are, but the market dictates that. That's capitalism. That's free market. And the global economy is going that way. No matter how many other places still have communism and everything, the reality is still the markets are very capitalistic. They are, because everybody's about the money. It doesn't matter who they are. I know that's a harsh statement, but you know what I mean when it comes to, having to make money in order to survive. So I hope that this makes some sense. And I went off on a tangent. I can't remember who it was. Another person on the left a comment the other day. I think his name is Greg, or something. And he was like, this was a really good video, but man, you can't stay on topic to save your life. I think that's why it should be called a VO's ramblings. That's a good one. Maybe rambling Tuesdays, rambling Thursdays. All right, let's look at these guys. I think there's only been a couple people. Thank you for sticking around today. Let me see if you guys have any questions or thoughts. Woody, what's up? Nah, you don't have to behave, dude. It's cool. B Doggy 45. I love that name. You said like doing a few $5 jobs on Fiverr just to build up some reviews. Absolutely. And I didn't talk about the fact that, so much, but let's be truthful and honest. The huge shift, if we want to talk about what really is the shift in the voiceover industry, is work being done in person in studios, being done with deals over the phone. So much of that shift is shifting all online. So with that shift online, you have, again, that Amazon effect. People want to purchase things based on either your brand, either price. All right. They want a free market and free decision. I mean, the honest truth is when you get someone on the phone and you talk to them, you know what I mean? They're more likely to pay you more money, right? Because they inherently then understand the value of what you do as you as a person. But as you look at online, it becomes a product. So where I'm going with all this is reviews. You've got to have reviews. How else are people going to know how good you are? And how do you get reviews? Well, you go on sites that offer that service. Fiverr is one of them who has a very good review section. Most of these other places, so does voices.com, all these other sites, they all have reviews, right? And you can get reviews. That helps people say, hey, listen, I like his voice, but these reviews tell me that it's legit. So I just said legit. That I'm going to go with them. Do you see what I mean? And that's important. All right. That's why selling through your website is really hard. Because if you don't have any reviews, it could be anybody's website. It could be Joe Schmo's website. And, Joe, he's really a scam artist. All right. Let's see. Just sent one as a custom order from a buyer's request. Said the price was the introductory price so that I don't get caught in, well, you charged me X last time. That's true. But I have told you this. I have done this, Woody. If you ever when you're first starting out and you get stuck in that, sometimes you have to cut the people loose. You do. But that's after you grow. I love, and I say it a bunch, but I love the adage, don't add another show until you're sold out. Right? Until your other ones are sold out, you don't add a new one. So, when you are so busy and you're ready to, you need to grow because you're just so packed, that's the time you raise your prices. Okay. And then if you're busy, raise your prices some more. If you're still busy, raise them some more. Don't stop raising them. All right. Okay. Let's see. I like that, Woody. That's something I've been kind of concerned of. All right. Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes when I switched over and I made the decision that I was going to raise all my prices across the board because I was so busy, I lost customers, because they were like, you charge this. I'm like, I'm sorry, I can't do that anymore. But see, then I got a whole bunch of new customers. And again, that begs the question as well, right? Is that there's different people out there buying. You have to make a decision who you're going to sell to. And then who you sell to, you also are going to compete against other people at that level selling. And if those people are well above you because of experience and time, it's going to be challenging. All right. But that doesn't mean you don't do it, but it's just challenging. Let's see. There he is. It's Greg. I was just talking about you, Greg. I was talking about you because I was like, I went off on a tangent on this video and I said, oh my goodness, Greg's going to get on me about it. But I'm glad you joined late. Maybe you won't. All right. Let's see. Making a lot of sense. Thank you, Anthony. So the $50 example, would you also opt to send a custom order? Perhaps no, it's okay. Perhaps negotiate a better price. I'm trying to think okay, yes, something like that. I'll do you can. I mean, or the whole point is that it's about knowing what you're doing too, Woody. At that particular place on Fiverr, that particular place was set up for brand new, for people just getting in there to try to find business, and also for clients who didn't know enough about the industry as well. And they have a certain amount of money and they want to see if anybody's interested. That is like the epitome of open market. That is the utmost open market you can get. Someone has, $50 and they got this job they want done. Does anybody want it? You can't get more open market than that. So you just have to determine if you are in that place in your career where you want to do and you want to bid on that. If you do, go for it and don't look back. Do you know what I mean? All right. So I hope that helps. Yeah, thank you. I'm glad you do. Okay, you guys. Well, good, great. Yeah. So the only thing about the rambling is it goes on a long time, but I hope that, like for me, I know in this conversation today, just to sum all of it up, is that, I think, especially after we went over the GVA rate guide some, and we talked about the pricing, that the industry is not that far apart that they think they are, but that there are certain things that make it very difficult to sell online. Whereas a lot of what's put down on paper or, on the screen is very challenging to describe in a 1,200 character to a description for someone. Or what these websites allow us to do. So in some sense, we're all charging actually close around the same thing. In other places, we're not charging anywhere near the same. Okay. Like we made that example about the broadcast stuff. But again, that goes back to the fact that in that 1 to 2 minute video, that was $350 to $550 for like a non-broadcast spot for corporate or something. Well, those jobs are not going to be, you're good. You would typically that would be your job for, a couple of days or a week. You know what I mean? Unless you're pumping out so much of that, you know what I mean? That someone's got you on retainer or something. So again, it's all in context. All this pricing is in context. And in the end, I think it's based on supply and demand, Right now, there's a huge supply of voice actors. So, of course, when there's a lot of supply, let's just talk economics, right? When there's a lot of supply, then the demand goes down. And when the demand goes down, right, it's going to be cost less because there's more supply in the market. Right. But when there's less supply, the demand goes up, prices go up. I mean, it's economics, right? 101. Anyways, thank you guys for watching as always. Please like, share, comment, be kind, Greg. Please be kind. I'm kidding. Thank you guys so much. You have a wonderful Thursday. See you tomorrow. Bye.